let's talk about the real risk and real threats that is pronounced by the dictator Lukashenko. Actually, it's the words of Putin, I think, because Lukashenko is not independent personality. Anyways, Radio Svoboda of Belarus counted 754 pieces of equipment in the camp of Wagner's company in the village of Tsel near Osipovichi, including 62 trucks, 534 cars of various types, 33 buses, 99 trucks, and 26 trucks or armored vehicles. This amount can be seen in the photo from July 25th. The amount of equipment around the camp is growing rapidly. Journalists note that compared to the July 19th photo, the equipment increased by approximately 2,069 units. So according to estimates of the monitoring group Belarusian Gayun, 11 Wagner vehicles convoys arrived into the country. This is more than 700 units. So the last column arrived on the evening of the July 25th and consisted of at least 29 cars. So what could be the mission of Wagner Group in out of the territory of Belarus? And is that potential threat to the Poland's border, for example, and how it can be?
Well, let's be clear, 800 units is one brigade. One Western brigade. In fact, it's probably less than an American heavy brigade. I mean, as a battery commander in the artillery, I had 38 units just in one battery. So our regiment was 200. The artillery regiment was over 200 vehicles. Okay, so you're not looking at anything clever. No, not nearly 200. You're not looking at anything clever there. You're looking at a brigade's worth of vehicles. And I just add to that, that's a brigade worth of vehicles that they've never trained on. They haven't done any armoured exercises, driving around actually working. And so they've got the vehicles. Have they got the radios? Have they got all the other weapons that you need? Have they got the surveillance equipment? Have they got the drones? And the answer to that is probably no at the moment. And when you get that sort of stuff, you still need quite a bit of time to train before you actually know how you're working with each other. Because this is a new unit, and new units do not actually fight very well when they start. So we've got time to see the Wagner Group, and if they all just load them up in vehicles and drive across the border, they will get eaten up by both the ground and by the trained units that are on the other side. Because remember, the NATO units in Poland, in Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, they have all been training solidly now for the last few years. And they do a lot of training, and it's quite aggressive and serious. So I don't think one brigade's worth of Wagner vehicles and lots of semi-trained people is actually going to worry them. Yes, it can be bloody. Yes, there can be a nasty fight, but it's not something that's about to create a new front. Not without huge risk of involving NATO. And do they want to do that? I don't think so.
Even with the use of Belarus army, because from our conversations with the experts, Belarus nation, the Belarus people and Belarus army, not the top generals in the environment of Lukashenko, but just the simple plain soldiers, are not such crazy as most of the Russian representatives for now, brainwashed by Russian propaganda. So there are much more adequate people that understands that this is a suicide. Suicide. So you think so?
I agree. And most of them are pretty poorly trained as well. They've done very little what we would in the West would call battle training. So, and when you actually say it's only 40,000 strong, start taking away all the people in headquarters, start taking away the logistics, start taking away the people in the Air Force and everywhere else. The number of fighting soldiers in Belarus is extremely low. And as you say, they don't want to fight. They've made that plain at many levels. Belarusians do not consider themselves Russians. And, so whatever Lukashenko says, I do not see that many of them are going to follow his grand plan with any enthusiasm.
One
Remember
more.
what?
Yeah.
Remember what Italians were like in the Second World War. When they went under pressure, they gave up.
But there's still one more threat, and it's actually doubtful by some experts. So I want to ask you about this. The Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, has no reason to doubt that Russian President Vladimir Putin claims that Russia has moved a first batch of tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus. Senior DIA official said on Friday. Lately, I mean, is it a real threat? Because some Lukashenko by himself was showing off at the cameras of his television about the existence of a nuclear weapon on the territory of Belarus, and his threats about Poland when he said that this Wagner group are planning to make a visit or touristic visit towards Poland. All this rhetoric of Lukashenko and from the point of view of Putin, I understand. But on the other hand, is it bluffing? Because we thought about bluffing that he will move this nuclear weapon to the territory of Belarus, but it's already on the territory of Belarus.
Okay, I mean, I could tell a couple of stories about that from years ago about weapons in Belarus, but it's not worth it at the moment. But you've got two things: you've got capability and you've got intention. I mean, remember first of all on capability that Russia actually borders Estonia. And Latvia, and Finland. So it already borders NATO countries. So if they want to find tactical nuclear weapons, they can do so. They don't need to ship them into Belarus. What does it give them by putting them into Belarus? Not much more than they had before. So operationally, there's no real need to put these weapons in there. So the next game then is theatre. And you know, then you're looking at theatre. Well, this is clearly theatre. Why is it theatre? I have no idea, any more than I had any idea of Prigozhin's theatre or real understanding. They are playing a lot of theatre at the moment. And what does the theatre do? It eats up the West's energy. It eats up the West's analysts. They start writing about theatre. And I think it is still theatre. Because if he decides to fire or even get Belarus to fire, the West will see Belarus as part of Russia. They will not say, oh, it's in Belarus, we're not going to do anything. So it doesn't make any difference. And Belarus has not got these weapons. Russia has got these weapons inside Belarus. So they're not Belarusian weapons, they are Russian weapons with Russian control, and Belarusians will not get their hands on them at all. So Lukashenko hasn't got them. He's just allowed more Russians inside his own country. Which means he loses power even more.
But still, this theatre continue to threaten some politicians and stopping them from the maybe radical decisions, even about the providing some sort of weapons. It's theatre, but still it threatens theatre.
Yes, it
In
is.
what situation you think it might be used? Because we were talking about this last chance, or the last card in the hands of Putin to stop counteroffensive. But as for we observe, the situation is quite slowly on the battlefield, but still, can it be used to stop the counteroffensive if it will be more faster and more obviously effective? No.
Because it's a tactical nuclear weapon. It's actually quite small. Tactical nuclear weapons are quite small. And so if you fire 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, you're going to cause as much damage to your own side as you are to the enemy. I was a troop commander in a tactical nuclear weapon unit in Germany in the Cold War. And we used to call it a boomerang, because if you fired it, you were going to get your own mess back at you. And because the weather doesn't, the wind, God decides where the wind's going to go, not Putin. And so you can fire one of these, the wind can change, and all the shit goes in your direction. And so it's not a very clever weapon to use or to even think about using. Could he use it in last resort? That it's the last resort for him, isn't it? It means the war is over for him, not just for us. It's over for him because the West will then have to intervene.